Something is changing in you, even if your life still looks the same to everyone else. You still go to work, answer texts, show up for family, handle responsibilities, but inside, a quieter rhythm has started beating, and it does not ask for permission. Here is the strange question most people have never dared to ask. What if you are not behind at all? What if the years you call delays were actually training, and the reason you have not won yet is that life was building a version of you that cannot be bribed by crumbs anymore? This is the season when women know it is time, not because they become loud, not because they suddenly get lucky, but because something in them stops performing. You stop forcing yourself to be understood by people who only listen when you agree. You stop arguing with your own truth just to keep the peace. You stop shrinking your feelings into a polite tone so nobody gets uncomfortable. On the outside, you might look calm and normal, but on the inside, the unconscious is sending signals. Quiet signals, but unmistakable. You feel it when certain conversations start draining you faster than they used to. You hear the same complaints, the same excuses, the same emotional games, and instead of trying harder, your energy simply backs away. You feel it when you catch yourself about to explain your decision, then you pause and think, why am I still defending what I know is right for me? You feel it when you crave quiet, not because you hate people, but because silence is the only place you can finally hear yourself again. You feel it when you look at your calendar and realize you have been living around other people's needs so long that you forgot what your own life feels like. Jung would say the unconscious moves first. Before you make the big change, before your outer world catches up, something inside you begins rearranging your priorities. It starts withdrawing energy from roles that are no longer true. It starts pulling you away from performances that once kept you safe. That is why it feels confusing, because the old life is still standing, but your soul is no longer living in it. Take 30 seconds and make this real. Write 3 short lines, as honest as possible. What have you been deeply tired of lately? What makes you crave more quiet? What do you no longer want to explain? You do not need to write a perfect paragraph, just 3 lines that tell the truth. And then carry this sentence with you like a compass. If it drains me, it's not destiny. Because the first sign that it is finally your turn does not show up as applause. It shows up as a boundary you can feel in your body, and the first sign always shows up before you can explain it. Your body starts saying no. It begins with a simple moment that looks almost boring from the outside. Someone asks you the same question they always ask, pushes the same button they always push, and you feel the old reflex rise, the reflex to explain, to soften, to justify, to make it all make sense so nobody gets upset. But this time, something in you stays quiet, not because you are angry, not because you are cold, because your soul is tired of negotiating with what has already expired. This is the first win, and it is smaller than people expect. You stop explaining yourself. You do not need a dramatic ending. There is no big fight, no final speech, no blocked number montage. Your energy simply withdraws like the tide going out. You walk into certain rooms, and your chest tightens. You sit at a family dinner, and you feel your shoulders creep up, as if your body already knows it will have to perform. You open a group chat, and the jokes, the gossip, the subtle competition, the little digs disguised as just teasing suddenly feel heavy, like breathing in stale air. You get a phone call from someone who always needs you, and before you even answer, your stomach drops, because you know the conversation will end with you carrying their emotions home. This is not a weakness. This is your new self refusing old patterns. You see it at work when you stop volunteering to fix what is not yours. You used to over-explain your boundaries like a lawyer, hoping people would understand. Now, you simply say what is true. You see it in relationships when you stop doing emotional labor to keep someone comfortable. You used to translate your needs into smaller and smaller words so they would not feel threatened. Now you speak plainly, or you do not speak at all. You see it with friends when you realize how often you were the one keeping the connection alive, texting first, checking in, making plans, smoothing tension, forgiving without change. And one day you stop, not to punish, but to test reality. If you do not chase, what remains? This shift can feel scary at first because the old persona believed love required effort, proof, and performance. Jung would call this a release of borrowed energy. When the unconscious withdraws its support from a false role, the role starts to crumble on its own. That is why you feel different. You are not becoming mean, you are becoming honest. Here is a quick way to make it real in your body, not just in your mind. Take 60 seconds and write 3 things that make you feel heavy the moment you think of them. One person, one place, one pattern. Maybe it is being pressured to explain myself. Maybe it is family conversations that turn into guilt. Maybe it is friendships where I always have to be the strong one. Do not overthink it. If your body says no, write it down. Then choose one simple sentence for this week. Keep it clean, keep it calm, let it do its job. That doesn't work for me. I can't do that anymore. Notice what happens inside you when you imagine saying it. The fear, the urge to add 10 extra sentences, the desire to prove you are still good. That urge is the old version of you trying to survive. But the new version of you does not need to be understood by everyone in order to be true. And here is where it starts to shock people. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop giving them the handles they use to pull you. Your silence removes their leverage. Your calm removes their drama. Your boundary removes their comfort. Once your energy leaves the old life, you start doing something most people avoid for decades. You choose the hard path. The hard path does not announce itself with a trumpet. It shows up as a fork in the road that nobody else can see, a quiet moment where you can either choose what is convenient or choose what is true. And this is where your old self begins to beg. It begins in the most familiar voice. Just keep the peace. Do not make it a big deal. It is easier to say yes. You can handle it. You do not want to look difficult. That voice is not evil. It is the part of you that learned survival through comfort. The part that believes safety means staying familiar, even if the familiar is slowly draining your life. So you stop choosing what is convenient. You see it in small moments first. Your boss asks you to take on another task just this once, and your mouth is about to say yes automatically, but your body tightens. You hear yourself say calmly, "I can't take that on right now." You do not over-explain. You do not apologize for existing, and you feel the rush of fear, followed by something deeper, relief. At home, a family member tries to rope you into the same old triangle, telling you what someone else said, expecting you to mediate. The convenient choice is to jump in and fix it. The true choice is to step back and let adults handle their own emotions. Your phone buzzes with a long message that used to hook you for hours, guilt, blame, and emotional chaos, and you feel the reflex to prove your heart. But you pause. You choose the sentence that protects your peace, even if it disappoints them. Sometimes it looks like walking away from fine but false. The relationship is polite but empty. The friendship that only feels warm when you are useful. The social circle where you laugh on the outside but feel lonely on the inside. The habit of pretending you are okay so nobody asks real questions. It would be to stay and keep your place. True to admit, your soul is not fed there anymore. In Jung's language, this is where the ego resists. Because the ego loves what it can predict. Even pain can feel safer than change if you have lived inside it long enough. The ego is the part of you that says, if I grow, I might lose people. If I speak honestly, I might be alone. If I stop doing what they expect, I might not be loved. That is why choosing right feels like a risk. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are exiting an old identity. You might feel it in your chest, like a tightening, in your throat, like a swallowed truth, in your stomach, like you are about to fall. That is your old self trying to pull you back into convenience. It does not want you to become powerful. It wants you to stay acceptable. Here is a simple way to turn this into action in under a minute. Ask yourself 3 questions about the thing you are avoiding. If I choose what's easy, what will I lose in 6 months? If I choose what's right, what strength will I gain? If I don't choose, what will I regret in a year? Answer quickly, as if you are telling the truth to a friend. Then do one right thing for 10 minutes today, 1 email, 1 boundary, 1 honest conversation, 1 small decision that matches the woman you are becoming. No perfection required. Because the moment you start choosing right, something strange happens. You can still remember the past. You can still feel its pull, but it no longer has the same grip. The old life still exists, but it cannot pull you back the way it used to. You start to notice it in the strangest place, not in your schedule, not in your relationships, but in your memory. The past still visits, but it no longer owns you. A song comes on that used to crack you open, and instead of spiraling, you feel a quiet ache and then a breath. You drive past an old neighborhood and the scenes rise as a film. The apartment, the arguments, the door you once closed while crying, and your body stays here. You see a photo from years ago, and you do not immediately turn into the person who lived inside that pain. The memory is still true, but it does not drag you under. It is like you can hold the story in your hands now without letting it swallow your chest. This is what real healing feels like. Not amnesia, not pretending it never happened. It is remembering without breaking down. You notice it when someone speaks to you the way an old wound used to respond to. Maybe a coworker dismisses your idea, and the old part of you used to shrink, to over-explain, to chase approval. Now you feel the sting, but you do not abandon yourself. Or a family member uses the same tone they always used, the tone that once made you feel small, and you can feel the old child inside you wake up, but you do not hand her the steering wheel. You stay with her, you breathe, you respond from the adult you are now. That is integration. You see it when you can finally say, "That was unfair," without adding, "But maybe it was my fault." You see it when you can look back at a relationship and admit, "I ignored my own needs," without shaming yourself for it. You see it when you can name the pattern clearly. I used to confuse anxiety with love. I used to think being needed meant being valued. I used to believe I had to earn peace. And you say it the way you would read a map, not the way you would recite a punishment. In Jungian terms, this is the shadow losing its hidden power. The shadow is not just dark behavior, it is also the unprocessed pain that drives you from behind the curtain. When it is unconscious, it chooses your partners, your tone, your boundaries, your tolerances. It turns your body into a warning system that never turns off. But when you integrate it, the shadow becomes information. It stops being a monster in the basement and becomes a room you can walk into with the light on. That is why memories change when you change. The event stays the same, but the meaning evolves. The scar is not erased. It becomes part of your strength. Try this for 2 minutes. Write 2 honest lines. What did I need back then that I did not receive? Maybe it was protection. Maybe it was reassurance. Maybe it was someone to choose you. Maybe it was rest without guilt. Maybe it was permission to be soft. Write it plainly, then write the second line. How have I started giving that to myself now? Maybe you have begun to say no without collapsing. Maybe you have started taking breaks without proving you deserve them. Maybe you have stopped begging to be understood and started honoring your own truth. Maybe you are choosing calmer rooms, safer people, stronger routines. Maybe you are learning to speak to yourself with respect. And carry this sentence like a quiet vow. I remember it, but I don't live there. Because here is the part that can surprise you. Peace does not mean life is over. Peace means you are ready. Do not confuse calm with the end of tests. When you grow stronger, life sends bigger ones. It shows up like a heavier weight in your hands, and for a second, you wonder if life is trying to crush you again. A new responsibility lands on your desk. A family problem resurfaces. A bill surprises you. A health scare hits someone you love. A conversation you have avoided for years suddenly becomes unavoidable. And the old version of you would have called this bad timing, unfairness, proof that you never get to breathe. But now something different happens. You feel the pressure, yes. You feel the tiredness, yes. Yet you do not shatter. This is the test that proves you are ready. Life does not always send bigger tests because you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it sends them because you have built enough inner structure to hold more. It is like the universe quietly saying, let's see if you still abandon yourself under stress. Let's see if you still panic to keep control. Let's see if you still trade peace for approval. Harder responsibilities arrive, not to break you, but to measure your new capacity. You notice it in real life in the moments that used to hijack your nervous system. Someone sends a message with a sharp tone, and you do not spiral for 6 hours rewriting your response. You pause, you breathe, you answer clearly, or you do not answer yet. A family member tries to pull you into their emotional storm, and instead of becoming their therapist, you say, I can't hold this right now. You feel guilty for a moment, then you feel grounded. At work, a problem comes up that would have made you overfunction, staying late, fixing everyone's mistakes, taking responsibility for things that were never yours. Now you do what is yours to do, and you let the rest belong to the people it belongs to. You may still feel tired, but it is a different kind of tired. It is not the tiredness of being helpless. It is the tiredness of being honest. You are tired because you are finally carrying your own life with both hands instead of dragging everyone else's too, and there is dignity in that. Sometimes the test looks like temptation. Someone from your past returns, sweet, apologetic, nostalgic. They offer you the comfort of the familiar. The old you would have rushed to forgive, hoping this time it would be different. The new you asks one quiet question. Has anything actually changed? And you do not let longing become a leash. You choose what is true over what is convenient, even when your heart wants an easier story. Sometimes the test looks like timing. You are finally building momentum, then something interrupts it. A sick parent, a demanding season at work. A child is struggling, a move, a loss. And you realize the difference is not that you avoid disruption now. The difference is that you do not collapse into it. You do not make it mean you are cursed. You do not punish yourself for being human. You adjust, you breathe, you keep your center. That is readiness. Here is a fast tool that makes this practical in less than 2 minutes. Draw 2 columns on a page. What I can control, my boundaries, my routines, my choices, my responses, my rest, my standards. What I cannot control, other people's emotions, the past, the exact timing, who approves, who understands. Then pick one action from the can control column and do it today. Send the boundary text. Take the walk. Turn off the phone for 1 hour. Say no to one draining request. Clean one corner of your space like you are clearing your mind. One action is enough to remind your nervous system who is in charge now. Because this is what proof looks like. The pressure rises, but you stay with yourself. The storm shows up, but you do not hand it the steering wheel. The test comes, and instead of shrinking, you meet it with the woman you have become. And after those tests, you start to notice the final sign, the one that creates real winners. The shift is not loud, and that is how you know it is real. After the test proves you are ready, you stop chasing emotional highs to feel like you are changing. You stop needing the perfect mood, the perfect Monday, the perfect burst of motivation. You begin to move from a different place, not intensity, but identity. The old you would wait until you felt inspired. The new you acts because it matches who you are becoming. It looks simple on the outside, almost boring, which is why most people miss it. You wake up and you do the small thing you promised yourself you would do, even when you would rather scroll, even when you are tired, even when no one is clapping. You pay the bill on time, you take the walk, you drink water, you make the appointment, you clean the corner of your space, you write the 5 lines, you stretch your shoulders, you stop returning to a conversation that drains you. You do not announce it, you do not debate it, you just do it. Consistency is where real power hides. In real life, intensity can look like a breakthrough that fades. You cry, you journal, you swear you will never tolerate that again, and for 3 days, you feel strong. Then someone texts you with the same old tone, and your nervous system snaps back into the familiar loop. Consistency is different. Consistency is the woman who does not answer immediately because she respects her own nervous system. It is the woman who keeps her boundary even when she feels lonely. It is the woman who does not quit her healing because she had a bad day. She adjusts and continues. You notice it in relationships first. Someone tries to pull you into urgency, to demand a reaction, to trigger guilt, to make you prove your love with panic. And you remain steady, not cold, not cruel, steady. You reply when you are clear. You do not rush to explain. You do not bargain for peace. You choose your response like you are choosing your life. People who used to feed on your emotional spikes start to lose interest because you are no longer predictable. And people who respect you start to relax around you because they can feel your center. You notice it in your mind next. The inner critic still speaks sometimes, but it does not get the final vote. You catch the old story, I'm behind, I always mess it up, I'm not strong enough, and you answer it with evidence, not emotion. I kept my boundary last week. I followed through even when I did not feel like it. I did not abandon myself today. That is how character is built, brick by brick, not by a single dramatic moment. Even your body begins to trust you. Your shoulders drop more easily. Your stomach does not brace as often. Your sleep slowly becomes deeper, not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer living at war with yourself. You are becoming the kind of person your own nervous system can lean on. Here is the practice that makes this real in under a minute. Choose one small habit, something so small you cannot argue with it. Write 5 lines, clear your desk, walk, stretch. Make one healthy meal choice, then do it for 5 minutes only. No negotiating, no waiting for inspiration. 5 minutes is not about productivity, it is about identity. It teaches your psyche, I keep my word, and carry this line like a quiet oath. I do it because this is who I am now. Because the secret is not that you suddenly become unstoppable. The secret is that you become steady, quiet, unimpressed by chaos, loyal to your own standards. And when you live like this long enough, you realize the truth that scares people who still need drama to feel alive. Real winning is always quiet. And then one day, you notice it. Not as a fireworks moment, not as a dramatic before and after, but as a quiet refusal that feels like freedom. You stop returning to your old life just to keep other people comfortable. You stop shrinking your opinions to avoid tension. You stop rehearsing your words like you are begging to be understood. You stop making your healing convenient for people who benefited from your pain, staying familiar. In Jung's language, this is the moment the self is no longer negotiating with the persona. The mask can still exist, but it no longer runs the show. Your win is not a loud moment of applause. It is a new inner solidity. You know who you are when nobody is watching. You know what drains you. You know what is not yours to carry. You know what you will not tolerate anymore. And you do not betray that truth just because loneliness whispers, just because guilt tries to imitate love, just because someone is uncomfortable with the new version of you. This is why the final victory often feels almost simple. You walk into the same room and the old triggers still exist, but they cannot hook you the way they used to. You hear the same tone, the same pressure, the same subtle manipulation, and your body stays calm. You respond with clarity, or you do not respond at all. You choose your standards without explaining them like a crime. And the strangest part is this: you do not feel like you are winning over someone else. You feel like you are finally winning yourself back. So take 30 seconds and seal it into language, because the mind respects what you name. Write this line and read it out loud, slowly, like you are making a vow to your own soul. My suffering was training. My clarity is earned. Let it land. Not as a quote, but as a receipt. Proof that you paid for this growth with years, tears, and choices nobody saw. Proof that you were not broken. You were forged. If this feels like your season, comment "finally." Or comment this instead: which sign describes you most, and what are you walking away from right now? If this touched something sacred inside you, don't let it fade into silence. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your presence here is not just support, it's resonance. And if you feel moved to give back, your donation becomes a quiet but powerful gesture that helps keep this light alive for others still walking in the dark.